listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking to my ball. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
What's going on, Miami Dolphins fans? How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Friday, February 7th. I am your host, Mike Oliva, joined, as always, by Josh Moser of WSVN-7, live from New Orleans, Radio Row. Josh, how you doing?
Oh, man, it has been chaotic. You get up at 8 o'clock, you've got 20 messages, you're running around talking to agents, players, left and right. And then, it's New Orleans, so you got to have a little bit of fun, too. So.
Yeah, I have a little bit of fun. And I'm not going to play the video today, but today's show is brought to you by Caneswear. Everyone go to caneswear.com for the latest gear for the Dolphins, the Hurricanes, the Panthers, the Heat, and everything else. Caneswear.com. Check it out. Okay, so you got Eagles, Chiefs. Now, you're there, so I know your experience isn't going to be the same as someone like me who's not down there. Is there... for this game, because it's the Chiefs who we see every year, because it's the same matchup we saw 2 years ago, and with everything that's happening in the NBA this week, that's sort of been front page, top headline news, not just in Miami, but just across the league. Is there a lot of buzz for this game on Sunday, or not much of a buzz compared to previous Super Bowls, or is it starting to build as we get closer to Sunday, you think?
So we're so ingrained in
you're
Super
there.
Bowl, so this is the epicenter for everything. So as far as we're concerned and everyone in New Orleans is concerned, this is the only thing happening. You check your phone for an alert. You find out Ben Simmons is getting bought out, which is also a Bernie Lee client who represents Jimmy. So shout out to Bernie, but I mean, it's not looking very good right now. Don't know the ins and outs of everything, but certainly an interesting situation. But yes, with the NBA trade deadline passed, I think all of the focus will now shift nationally as far as media is concerned to the Super Bowl. And, it's basically for everyone watching, if you're concerned about TV and like numbers and like how this actually works from a business perspective, Friday, which is today, is the worst rated day of the week along with Saturday because everyone's out on Friday night. It's the weekend, Saturday, people are doing things. So, in this world today, everybody's on their phone. You want to go live your life. And then Sunday, when the game starts, that's when everybody's going to start paying attention. And do you want to see Patrick Mahomes make history, or do you want to see somebody else win because you're sick of seeing the Chiefs win? I feel like that's the general consensus nationally. This Jimmy Butler thing's a big deal because they gave him the extension. And shout out to Jimmy. Like, you can say what you want about the man. Like, he got exactly what he wanted. So people might not like the way that he went about it, but he got everything he wanted accomplished. So from his perspective, he won, which is crazy. After everything that happened, he's still $120 million.
I know, 2 years, 121. That's the thing in professional sports. It's like, sometimes as fans who just, watch the games, win, lose, but how the sausage is made behind the scenes, it's not always pretty. And this was a situation where it wasn't pretty, but the player got what he wanted. So his end goal was accomplished. Even though as a fan, it does leave you, if you're a diehard fan of the Heat, you're upset, mad. It didn't end well, leaves a sour taste in your mouth because you had to go through the past however many months. But from a player's perspective, he goes, look, he's 35, only got how many more years left? I got to maximize all the money. If you're not going to give it to me, send me someplace who will.
Yeah, and I mean, I can tell you from inside that I have, it was the owner of the Warriors that wanted Jimmy Butler. Mike Dunleavy is the general manager, longstanding relationship with their family, going back to elementary school with James Dunleavy, who's an agent in the NBA. With XL, he represents Cade Cunningham, former #1 overall pick. Obviously a basketball family with their dad coaching the Clippers, coached multiple teams. And, Jimmy, he has the same concerns as everybody else. The owner wanted him. And now we're going to find out if this Draymond Green situation is going to work with Steph Curry. And I'll say this, like, Jimmy's about winning. And now he's motivated. And a pissed off Jimmy Butler is a force to be reckoned with. We've seen playoff Jimmy. And I think people are very excited to see if he can turn this Warriors team around, because they're essentially in the play-in situation right now. I would argue that the West, at least the bottom half of the West, is easier to get through than the bottom half of the East. I think there's more teams in the East, but obviously you're going to run into issues with Oklahoma City. Denver's still there when they're healthy. Memphis has been phenomenal. They just made a bunch of moves, so we'll see how they gel together. But, I mean, in the East right now, it's the Celtics still premier there. I think the Cavs are pretenders, but you never know when Giannis can turn it on. So, we'll see what happens.
I think in the East, and I know we're talking NBA and the Dolphins show. I love this.
Yeah,
in the East,
and it's Super Bowl.
Exactly. At the top of the East, you got three teams, I think, with the Cavs, Celtics, and Knicks. So I think that's one tier. And then you draw a line. After that, you got about another 5-6 teams or so, and that's that tier. But I think at the top of the East, you got a tier of three who are clear cut above everyone else. I probably put the Celtics in one tier all by themselves, and then put Knicks and Cavs right after that. But yeah, the East, the top of the East is brutal, because those three teams, I think today, February 7th, are clearly better than every other team in the East. In the West, it's more wide open. It's always wide open in the West a little bit. It's just about who gets hot.
People don't care about this, but Jimmy's got a house in San Diego. That's So his life got better. What he's in his press conference, things that he's most upset about is the coffee shop. Just up the coffee shop.
See, it's stuff like that. So see, it's the stuff like that. Small things in life.
Wrong, Mike? Come on.
Now. I know. All right, so let's talk about this game a little bit here. Eagles versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs, we all know about the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. They get every bounce of the ball, even though they like to say they don't, they do. They are arguably the greatest quarterback who's ever played the sport. I would say that already. Win or lose this week, I don't care. He's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen play. And, he's better than Montana. He's better than Tom Brady, Peyton. He's better than you. I mean, he's that good. And then on the other side, you got a Philadelphia team that's very well-rounded. Their quarterback isn't that level, but he's good enough. And they can run the ball. They play defense, big-time wide receivers, smart staff. I see this coming down to a field goal either way, honestly, much like the last time these teams played. And I see this being a close game. I'd be very shocked if one team won by 10 or more.
Yeah. Well, I can say this, that the one wrinkle that I don't know if it's being talked about nationally or not, but there's a flu bug going through the Eagles locker room. Multiple players are sick. And Jaylen Carter was the first to kind of get it, and he missed practice Wednesday because of it. So these guys are basically IVs, fluid, need a Michael Jordan flu game type of situation. So I'm curious to see how that impacts things. From betting people, that'll probably have an effect on the line. But look, like, if you're the champions for 2 years, and I mean, this is the weakest Chiefs team, in my opinion, of the three. This is the one down year. And it's tough to see. It's tough. I mean, personally, I'm a fan of this one. I'm rooting for the Eagles. Spagnuolo is phenomenal, and I'm curious to see if he stacks the box and tries to stop Saquon. So far, nobody's been able to do that. But then you're putting AJ in one-on-one man coverage, and he is the number one receiver statistically in the NFL in that coverage. So then the game goes to Jalen Hurts. So if I'm him, I'm making Jalen Hurts make those passes. I'm taking Saquon out. But we'll see what happens. I don't really expect this to be high scoring, even though we've seen the Eagles put up 50 in the playoffs. I see this, maybe 24, 21, 27. I don't see either team scoring 30 points.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, and for the last 5 Super Bowls, the under is hit. The one time it wasn't was when these two teams played a couple years ago. It went over. Before the last 5's been under. Here's a fun one. In the last 20 Super Bowls, the team that's worn white has won 16 times. Kansas City's wearing white. Kansas City's wearing white. So if sometimes you just gotta let the football gods do their thing and just ride it out there. Yeah, but I'm with you. I think it's going to be a close game. Yeah.
Yeah, I got some Dolphins news. Maybe we should
Go for it. Yeah.
Sure. So just spoke to Javon Holland, and free agent impending. He played the end of the season with a fractured wrist, no surgery, and so that's healing up. And the conversation with the Dolphins is open, but this is a bidding war now. Essentially, he's going to take the money, look for the best situation. So he wants all of his agents. He's represented by Athletes First to handle this. He's staying out of the conversation, but the door is still open to return to the Dolphins. And history would tell us that the Dolphins normally don't pay their draft picks. We've seen this with Robert Hunt last year. We've seen this with Christian Wilkins. And, they just priced out. And people can say that Javon had a down year, but realistically, I mean, he's going to get $15 million a season, probably for 3 or 4 years. He's not even 25 yet. So, I mean, shoot, you look at the deal that Brandon got a couple years ago to Denver. And I mean, he was hurt, ACL, everything. Javon hasn't had that, and he's younger. So, that's that. And then Teron Armstead's going to talk to the team in the next 2 weeks to decide what he wants to do. He wants to come back and play. There has not been any offseason surgery yet, but he's dealing with a lot of stuff. And it's basically going to be a situation where they're going to try to structure a contract, where you can expect him to play 10 games. He did much better than that. He's phenomenal when he's there, but when he's not, he's not a guy that you can count on. So we'll see. That's why they drafted Paul. Maybe he's in a backup role, but he doesn't want to be a backup. So those are the types of conversations that they're going to have. And then Braxton's coming off the knee. The knee's ahead of schedule. He's hoping to return to the Dolphins. His buddy's been Jaylen Phillips. They've been working out together, similar injury. So things are looking pretty good there. And he thinks that he can stay. He would like to stay. And those are kind of the people that we've been able to speak to. Chop Robinson sends his best. Unfortunately, he didn't win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Last night it goes with Florida State, secured verse, signed on with the Rams. But I think Chop's got a bright future. I think he was a really good pick from Grier. I'm happy to see him get the opportunity to develop. Remember, Verse started the year, and Chop didn't really come in until a little bit later. So, those are the guys that we've been able to speak to. And then Alec Ingold's running around, Walter Payton.
Yeah.
Special guy. Bad year for him. Bad year for Raheem Mostert. He's hopeful that he will be back. He's got 1 year left on the deal. He might have to restructure. He could be a cap casualty. We do not know yet. Most likely that'll be Jeff Wilson, and they'll probably keep Raheem. But that's kind of that.
I'll say this about Holland too. The other thing that's probably working against him if he wants to stay, or for Miami to bring him back, is Chris Grier's history of only paying premium position guys. The 5 premium positions: quarterback, offensive tackle, wide receiver, corner, and edge rusher. Safety ain't that. Like with Hunt, that's not guard. Like with Christian, that's not one of those 5 positions. If you look at his history in rounds 1 and 2, he only, I don't want to say only, but 99% of the time, he drafts somebody at one of those 5 spots, and he only pays, and he only pays the money to Waddle, Austin Jackson, Tua. Everyone else in rounds 1 and 2 who doesn't play a premium position outside of Noah, for obvious reasons, they was traded and he wasn't very good. He doesn't pay. So Holland at safety, he's going to probably look to fill that spot or fill those spots, because right now I think they only have 1 under contract next year in Patrick McMorris, with guys who they add in free agency of their draft. So I think that's working against Holland there. The Armstead, the comment he made yesterday, I think with Simpson Florio about Tyreek. Did you see that? How he said Tyreek has some mending to do with some of the relationships in the locker room?
Yeah. I work with Drew Rosenhaus a lot, and Tyreek's represented by Drew. We'll say this, Tyreek's a veteran in this league, and most importantly, he's a captain on this team. And everybody's got personal stuff going on. And frankly, the way that the NFL looks at it is, what happens in your personal life, we don't care, as long as you show up to work and do what you need to do. There's a brotherhood in the NFL, and when you walk out on your team, when you've made a decision to play, regardless of the score, that irks the wrong people, and as a non-captain, it sends the wrong message, quite frankly. And we understand emotions are high. We understand that Tyreek's experiences are very different than, I would say, everybody else on the team, simply because prior to this year, he's a Pro Bowl alternate, but he made the Pro Bowl every single year, done the playoffs every single year, and it became a me, not team moment. And as a captain, you simply can't do that, and that's what Teron is alluding to. Now you can talk about all the stuff off the field. That's a whole different animal, but that's kind of what Tyreek is, and we knew.
You know what you're signing up for. You know what you're signing up for.
Yeah, and it's we're not faulting Tyreek. Like, you've got to be yourself, and but when the captain is supposed to mean something, when you got a C on your jersey, it's supposed to mean something, and that means sacrificing for the team, the betterment of the team. Yes, you're one of the best wide receivers in NFL history. We'll put it out there, and you're probably going to be a Hall of Famer. But it's what you represent. And now he's, multi-time father this year. Now he's, just got married. I'm curious to see how Tyreek comes back from this. And I want to see him lead by example. And I think Teron, that's exactly what he said. And the question is, if you lose Calais Campbell, if you lose Teron Armstead,
a lot of leadership.
Who are your leaders on the team? Tua's a great leader, but Tua's not a rah-rah.
He's a quiet leader. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't have the guy that's going to say, listen, what you doing? Get
Ramsey can be, but he's just one guy too. Ramsey can be.
Right. Ramsey's in a different spot. Yes, he's a gold jacket, but that's not his. Yeah. That's not his personality. And I think, you've got to find, those types of people. I mean, granted, they're Hall of Famers, but when Peyton Manning walked into the room, when I covered the Broncos, when they won the Super Bowl, everybody stands up a little straighter. You're on your P's and Q's. It was the same with Aaron Rodgers when I was in Green Bay. And, we haven't seen that here. Anthony Weaver provided a little bit of that this year because Mike McDaniel's not that either. Mike McDaniel's the players coach. So you need that kind of stern accountability, that a little bit of Brian Flores, especially for, a lot of players still love him. So yeah, it's figuring out that dynamic. But if you're going to put it all on the players, then your leaders in the locker room have to be really, really accountable. And they were the oldest team in the NFL. And I understand there were a couple players that did that. But for these young guys, they're very moldable. You forget that they're 21, 22 years old. You have no idea who you are. You follow who's around you, and you look to the vets to lead. And Tyreek's a vet. And you need them. And I would say Jaylen Waddle's in that role now too. You got paid. But he's not really one of those either.
He's not that guy either, yeah.
Chris Grier, build your team. And
roster construction. Go find a guy or two who can be that guy.
Right.
It's
most
just
of those guys, you've got to pay. I was on the red carpet last night and at the NFL Honors, and I was right next to the person that was working for the 49ers. I understand they had a lot of injuries, but at the beginning of the year, they were picked to get back to the Super Bowl. But talking to Fred Warner, just how he carries himself, everything that he does. Juszczyk, I understand he's a fullback, but what he brings to the team from a leadership perspective and how he talks, about the team. And then George Kittle. I mean, he does it in a different way, but these three guys, he's a Salute to Service Award winner. Your best players are your best people, and your best people are leaders. And that's the fabric of that team. It's not Brock Purdy. Similar situation to Tua, we'll say. So it's finding those types of guys, or more importantly, getting the guys that you have grow into that and be that. And when you're homegrown, you sometimes don't see it. You get a little bit from college, but college is way different. So can you find those guys? Yeah.
The two biggest losses we've had the past 10 years are Jarvis Landry and Christian Wilkins for that reason alone. And especially with Wilkins, I know what he got paid. He's not worth, quote unquote, as a player, but for everything else he brought to Miami, you can't put a price tag on that. And I would have moved heaven and earth, not at the because by the time it got to the end, he was priced out. I get it, but I would never have let it got that far because you saw that in him year 2 and 3 before it got to year 5. And someone like that, they don't grow on trees. And when you have that vocal leader, the guy everyone sort of looks to when times are tough, whatever, you don't want to let that just walk out the door. They did it with him. Landry was the same way if you go back even further. Those guys, they're tough to find. And when you draft them, you really don't want to let them go, especially when they're good. They might not be great, but they're very good. And that is a big thing.
But again, let's be real. I mean, everyone says we're going to make the Super Bowl. Look at the AFC. Like,
No, it's killer.
good luck.
They're not.
Like, let's be
Yeah.
realistic here.
Yeah. Today, Chris Perkins, Sun Sentinel, wrote an article saying that the Miami Dolphins window for the Super Bowl is closed, which I know some fans get upset, but honestly, it's like you look around the AFC, Miami has so much retooling to do. Like right now, if you just look on one side of the ball, just look at the defense. Outside of like 4 guys, they got nothing. You got Ramsey, Sealer, Chop, Jaylen was hurt, Jordan Brooks. Outside of that, everyone else is not under contract or they're really, really old. Like they need an entire new defense, and you don't put that together in 1 year, then make a run to the Super Bowl. And that's not even talking about your offensive line or your third wide receiver or your tight end room, which is just one guy right now, or who's your number 2 quarterback. Like just the defense alone needs so much work this offseason that, yeah, they're, I don't want to say light years away from the Super Bowl because that's unfair, but at least a year or 2 or more away from being in the conversation with the Ravens and the Bills and the Chiefs. It's a lot of work that has to be done right now in Miami.
Yeah. I'll go to find Drew. He's got Johnny Smith. We'll see what's going on. He needs some more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Some more money.
Yeah. Real quick here to wrap up. Number 1, MVP voting, Josh Allen over Lamar. Yeah. I mean, look, that was a coin toss to me. Either one could have won it. Do you even have any type of issue with him winning over Lamar or Saquon? I'd even throw in. I would have voted for Lamar. Personally, I would have voted for Lamar.
My vote would have been for Lamar,
Yeah.
based specifically on the numbers. However, Josh did win the playoff game, and that is part of the consideration for this award. They say it's a regular season award. It's not. That's factored in. Lamar's won before, but I'll say this: like, Josh Allen is the darling of the NFL.
Yes.
He's beloved, and like any voting, you gotta collect votes, right? And
Got a campaign. Yeah.
you've got a campaign. And so, in the NFL circles, Josh is that guy a little bit over Lamar, and whatever you want to say
A
behind
little more
that.
beloved. If they were
You
in this
can
game, the
say.
Bills, if they were in this game, the Bills, or the Lions too, for that factor, the buzz around this game, if just one of them were in it, it would be crazy because both of them are America's darlings right now. The buzz would be through the roof. I think having Chiefs and Eagles, there's not a lot of buzz because same old, same old. But yes, the Bills and Lions specifically are just America's darlings.
Jared Goff's story, I mean, all of that, yeah. But here we are.
Here we are. Okay, Hall of Fame: Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, Sterling Sharp. Any problem with any of the 4?
No, I mean,
I got a problem with one of them.
I've known Sterling forever. I know he only played 7 years, but he was phenomenal.
That's the problem. He had 4 big years. That's it.
But so this is, I knew you were going to go there. He's a very truculent human being.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's been stories. Yeah.
And when we talk about campaigning, first brother to brother, you've got your brother on the inside. And I'm trying to figure out how to equate this. If we're talking about a Hall of Fame player, I understand longevity is
That's my problem with it. Longevity, for some people, it matters, and for some, it doesn't. There's no consistency here. So just tell me the rules of how you're putting people in. Because there are some guys, who have a very short time in the NFL like him, who are fantastic, but it's just 4 years. It's 4 great years out of 7, whatever. And then there's other guys who play 17, 18, 19 years who have, 5 or 6 great years. Like, yeah, but he played. Well, does longevity matter or not? That's the problem. Some guys get in on longevity. Some guys are held out by longevity. And it seems like there's no rhyme or reason to the consistency. Because if you're going to put in Sterling Sharp, I can make a case for Mark Clayton of the Dolphins, who played before Sharp in a running league, who had 18 touchdown years as well, and had at least 4 or 5 years equal to Sharp in an era where nobody passed the ball like they did when even Sharp played.
I think that's a valid argument. When you talk to the players about Sterling, when he was on the field, he was just different. And that's what separated him. There was no one like him. You could not stop him. Yes, I understand the scheme wasn't what it was. You can make the same argument if they would have used him in a different way. But even back then in that style, he was so dominant when he played that superseded, in my opinion, the longevity. That was the decision that was made. Do I agree with it?
My whole thing is,
He was
it's
on
fine
the fence, over Eli.
Yeah, well, I'd put Eli in, and I did hear one of the voters on the radio yesterday say,
Over LT?
yeah,
Daniel
I mean,
Tomlinson?
they said Eli had Hall of Fame moments. He didn't have a Hall of Fame career. He won 2 Super Bowl MVPs. He beat arguably the greatest team ever, up until that loss with the Patriots. Like, he had a Hall of Fame career. Now, they're going to push back and say he's not someone who should go in on the first ballot, which drives me nuts. You're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. Whether it's first, second, or third ballot, I don't care. You're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. And
Come on, Richmond.
yeah, pretty much. Look, that's always been my argument with Richmond. The moment they put in Tony Baselli, again, not a knock on Tony, great player. Tony, short career.
But look at the
Richmond.
name.
Richmond played 100 more games than Tony. Okay, 100.
But he played in Miami. You know the bias.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody cares about Miami. You haven't won a playoff game in 25 years.
Seth Levitt and myself have had this conversation for years, especially with Clayton. And last night, it just got stronger with Sharp. You want to keep him out, Clayton, fine. But you look at his years, 83, 84, 85, 86 with Marino. That's great. And then they're going to go put in Sharp with 4 good years ever. And, they're going to say, well, nobody says, yeah, but he had Favre. But they're going to hold it against Mark Clayton that he had Marino. It's like, what, Favre chopped liver? And he's a Hall of Fame quarterback too. So, there's no consistency with this stuff. And you can make a case Richmond and Mark Clayton should be in if you're going to put in the Tony Basellis of the world and Sharps. That's just have consistency. I don't care which way you go, but you got to let them all in or don't put any of them in. Just be consistent.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, last topic, and this will be quick. Did you hear the tidbit this week on Monday? Schefter, Marcus Mariota, Miami might have interest. Number 2 quarterback. We know they got to do something.
Yeah.
To me, if it's Mariota, Drew Lock, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Dalton, Flacco, it's all 6'1", half dozen the other. They're all virtually the same type of guy. I'm not going to get worked up. But if it were to be Mariota, would you be okay with that? Or are you looking for something else in a number 2 quarterback? I want a recognizable name with somewhat of a resume who's proven something. It doesn't have to be.
Okay. All right. So if not Mariota, who?
I'd go Zach Wilson because I think there's a chance to turn him around, save his career, kind of like what happened with the Vikings and Sam Darnold.
Look, I mean, the reality
is... I know. But he won more games with the Jets than Rodgers did, and he didn't have Adams and Mike Williams and all those guys. So, I take a flyer there.
I mean, let's just be real. All right, if Tua goes down again,
it doesn't matter. I know. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're screwed.
And that's why they built the team this year the way that they did, because they were all in to win this year. And obviously everybody, it fell apart. You're right or die with Tua. It's the same when Joe Burrow's hurt. The team ain't going to make it. That's just kind of the nature of the league. Marcus Mariota, I think, would give you a better chance to win than anyone that they had this year as a backup quarterback.
Yes.
I like the idea of somebody that's mobile, that has an arm. I know they like Milroe out of Alabama for that reason.
I like him too.
And I think with a quarterback coach, I haven't been. Is Bevel still here? I know he was interviewing.
He's still here. He didn't get the OC job with the Raiders. Now, what I've warned fans is that doesn't mean he couldn't still leave to take the quarterback's job, but they give him the title of assistant head coach. So it is a promotion. So he could go sneak in some extra title, but he didn't get the OC job. That went to Chip Kelly, who got $6 million a year.
Right. I mean, we know that Kellen Moore is going to take over the Saints job. So that's Anthony Weaver essentially being back.
So it sounds like he's staying in Bevel. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all about dollars. And for me, yes, you need somewhat of you need somebody with experience and you need someone with leadership capabilities as a backup quarterback. But I'd rather see the money spent on an offensive guard. You got to keep to it.
They need a lot of help this offseason. It's going to be interesting to see. But
we're bottom. Sorry, Dolphins fans. Be realistic. The Bills are in the division. You have no idea what the Jets are going to be, and then here we are. That's what it is. And the Patriots are building, but they're not there yet. So
I'd be worried about the Patriots now. They got smart head coach, young quarterback, and $120 million to spend this off year.
Exactly, but it's going to take a year. So you're going to be fighting for second and third in the division, probably third, and you hope to get hot and you hope to get healthy and you hope for a home playoff game. But to get a home playoff game, you got to figure out how to beat Buffalo in Buffalo. And good luck.
Good luck. Yeah. All right. So, Josh, thanks so much. And it's a Fox game this week, so everyone watch Fox. I'm sure after the game that night you'll be on. Fox game. And also, I see behind you, it looks like it's Mad Dog Radio sitting there behind you. I see the blue wall. If you run into Mad Dog.
Yep. I'm listening.
If you run into him, not now, but sometime today, you tell him I'm his #1 fan. He's the best, and he is the best in the business. You tell him that from Mike. I love that guy. He's
part
awesome.
of the Montag crew. We can make something happen.
If you ever made that happen, that's like, I don't want to use the term.
You want to put him on the show?
It'd be a dream. If you get him on the show, it'd be great. Just even for 10 minutes, it'd be the best. Love the guy. He's the best.
See what I
but thanks so much, Josh. Everyone follow the Mo's Knows and check him out on WSVN-7. Enjoy New Orleans. Have some good food and drinks, and we'll talk to you again probably next week or so.
I need you here, Mike. Appreciate
it. All
right.
Thanks, 1 year. I'll be there. All right. Bye.